Hi, Tim. How are you? Of course. No problem at all. Happy to be a guinea pig.
Oh,
Bye, Joe. When's your last day, by the way? Sorry to see you go. Where are you going? Oh, nice.
Spokesman Mug here.
My wife worked on the backdrop, so we got to make
What's
sure I have
good?
a box. Yeah,
All right.
she wanted me to
Hey,
represent.
this is Rob Curley. I'm the editor of the Spokesman-Review, and we're continuing our virtual Northwest Passages community forums today. Today's going to be a fun one. We're going to begin the day with Athletic Director Pat Chung. If there's been anybody in the Pacific Northwest who's had a more interesting 2 years, I don't know who it is. So, and interviewing him will be our Washington State sports writer, Theo Lawson. So Theo and Pat, thank you so much. And I'm going to get out of the room and let you two talk. So take it away.
Thank
Hey,
you.
Pat, thanks a lot for joining us this morning. And obviously, in these times of uncertainty, it's great to have a little distraction every now and then. So I just wanted to ask you a few questions about how things are going over there at Washington State, kind of how you guys are communicating with staff right now. What's the immediate future look like, and then kind of maybe review a few of your guys' seasons, the basketball season, football. We can talk a little bit about women's soccer and kind of what you guys expect moving ahead. And I can tell you, first of all, that this is my first time wearing a button shirt since I believe the Pac-12 tournament in Las Vegas when we were down there together. And I know you shaved for this interview, so thanks a lot for doing that.
Yeah. Well, let me start this out with, I guess, as a loyal subscriber to the Spokesman-Review, I'm going to express my disappointment to Rob about his selection with today's topic. That's me. I think we could have found better, but I'll respect, Rob, your choice today, and I'll do my best at this. As a loyal subscriber, I do question your decision-making. I put you asked to be a part of this platform today, but I'll digress, and we can move forward.
Yeah.
You know, you're just like every other subscriber who questions my judgment every day. But normally they're a little bit older than you. So
And moving forward, hopefully we can get football coach Nick Rolovich on, basketball coach Cal Smith, and kind of continue this and see how each of the coaches are dealing with this right now, and kind of working with their individual teams. What do workouts look like right now? What do team meetings look like right now? But just first off, can you kind of explain your own personal life in quarantine? And I know you have a wife and a few daughters at home, and can you kind of explain how that's going? Talking to Cal Smith a few weeks ago, he said he's kind of been homeschool teacher to his 3 kids right now, and kind of helping out a little bit at home right now.
Yeah, by design, this is more a reflection of me. I have no academic rigor at home. I've been more assigned to outdoor activities. So although the girls are doing distance learning, online learning, Natalie, my bride, has them obviously reading, trying to do some things. They're actually spending a lot of time. We've lived here for 2 years, and embarrassed to say we still have things that have really not been unpacked. So just a lot of times getting organized, but it's been busy though. I mean, it's if every day starts. If anything, I was talking to Brian Green, our baseball coach, yesterday, and I was telling him, man, if I don't get in better shape at this stay at home, stay healthy, if I don't live that stay healthy piece, I'm doing myself a disservice just because of the decline in travel. So, a typical day for me is literally waking up. I'm a treadmill person, so I'll plod miles on a treadmill. I'm in a fruit smoothie cult. So I do a morning fruit smoothie. I've been doing that for probably over a decade of my life. And then there's an 8:30, and the weird thing about being at home is, when your first call of the day is an 8:30 Pac-12 daily athletic director call, you can do that drinking a smoothie, maybe not having showered, so you can ease your way into a day. But really, and then from that point on, it's just going throughout, just connecting, meeting with our staff, our coaches, and all parts in between, trying to keep continuity of business going forward.
Can you kind of talk about what's being discussed on those Pac-12 calls with different athletic directors? And I'm sure it's everything from the football season to currently how to work with athletes as far as the online distance learning. Can you kind of take me through what one of those calls may look like?
Well, it's amazing because the world's changing. We've been, I guess it'd be 22 days ago, you and I woke up in Las Vegas. Thought we'd be able to watch a basketball game. You'd be objective about how the day went. I'm thinking, all right, we're going to be ASU and be here for another night. And then how much the world has changed in those 22 days. And we actually met face to face. Majority of the ADs were still in town when we were in Vegas, and we decided at that point we need daily calls just because of what was going on in the world. Our commissioner, Larry Scott, has a daily call with the other Power 5 commissioners. So he'll update, basically kind of give a national landscape update about what's going on and what is that dialogue is like. And probably immediately has really been, how do we align as a league? Some immediate issues came up with additional year of eligibility. We're still, we just put out our pandemic policies with what we can or can't do virtually, and we're still working through some other small details about what we can do in terms of video instruction. So hopefully we get a ruling on that. I had to come to decisions quickly about recruiting, shutting it down for the health and safety of everybody involved. So there's a bunch of moving pieces, but it's just that kind of dialogue every day where the industry is actually moving quickly in terms of adapting to the time and just making sure that, hey, we get information on a timely manner so we can start implementing and applying those decisions to our campus at Washington State.
That additional year of eligibility has kind of been a hot button issue since the NCAA voted on it Mondays. Student athletes, seniors especially, are able to come back next year and play. And if they lost their spring season due to the coronavirus, and but student athletes also aren't able to get more money than they were receiving this year. That they can receive up to scholarship money that they were receiving, or down to zero, anywhere kind of in between. Can you kind of talk about how WCU is addressing that? And obviously, some of these spring teams are more seniors than others. Baseball has two, and I believe at least one of those probably will be going to play in the Major League Baseball. So maybe for Brian Green it isn't as big of an issue, but for other coaches that have a few more seniors and probably have to split a few scholarships with incoming freshmen and then the seniors coming back next year.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reality with, as we budget even this year and next year, that is an additional cost. There's no funding source as of now. There may be a point in time where we may ask some donors for some help, but right now it's more trying to just to build a number to work with. So it's just a spring sport, so it's working with those coaches to see, all right, who wants to come back, because there's a reality too. We have student athletes that are going to graduate that may have jobs lined up, that may want to get moving in life, that have other goals after sports. And I remind our coaches, at the end of the day, the goal is to grow them as human beings. The human development piece is what we really impact them. But there's also a piece where, hey, we got to graduate them, help them get jobs as well. So everyone's got to make a family decision, especially the equivalency sports. Baseball is a great example. The other senior who I know, Brian Green would love to have back, just because you talk about the leadership capabilities and the quality young man Owen Leonard is. But the family's gonna have to make a decision, because he's on a percentage scholarship, and if they're willing to make that type of investment into another year, and he needs an academic reason to come back. So that probably would mean grad school. But he's also a guy. I mean, our coaches think he's got the potential to be a pro down the road, and they were so excited with how well he took to the coaching. And work ethic has never been Owen's issue, so it's always been, all right, he's really connected with this coaching staff, and can they help him even get closer to his professional goals next year?
Right. Can you just talk about your communication with your own staff, different people in the athletic administration, different coaches? How are you kind of communicating with them daily? I'm sure you're on a bazillion Zoom meetings every day with different coaches and different members of the staff and reporters too.
Yeah, it's probably the discipline piece is just making sure the days don't blur together, because the stimulus hasn't changed. I'm used to being, if I'm meeting with the president, I'm in his office. If I'm meeting with a coach, I'm one of those people that likes to walk. So I abide by the theory: leaders lead from their feet, not from their seat. So if I need to go talk to Kyle Smith or Jen Greeny or Nick Rolovich, I'll typically go walk up or over to their offices, just to make sure that I get some visual contact with them. So that's changed. That's not different. Although I'd argue where I live, I could walk to Jen Greeny's house and Nick Rolovich's house. I think the steps would actually be less than actually walking to their respective offices where my old office is at. But we've been meeting really probably, when you average it out, the last, I guess, 22 days, with our senior staff, at least 3 or 4 times a week. We've had multiple coaches meetings, just with all of our head coaches. At least 2 or 3 a week, again with our probably at least 2 a week with our head coaches. We actually did our all staff meeting yesterday for the first time. We did that all via Zoom, and all these meetings are done virtually over Zoom. And we just felt like, all right, we needed to connect all of our athletic department staff. And when I looked last time, I looked down, I think 191 of our teammates logged in. We asked most of them to, hey, if you can, go video so we can see your face. So it was good just to gather everyone together and just talk about the times, talk about go moving forward, talking about how during times of adversity, you really see the culture of an organization come out. It's why you and Rob are doing forums like these, because adversity is going to bring out the best and worst in people, and we're making a decision that's going to make the best out of us. So let's start planning that, and just having those talks with our team and walking through some business. We actually had our nutritionist give some stay-at-home eating tips, and she actually changed my meal for the afternoon because I noticed I didn't have anything of color on my plate, so I switched up and put something with color on my plate. So things like that. We need business to get going forward. If anything, we're probably talking as much. It's just, I mean, it is different not having human contact. That's a reality.
On a more kind of sobering note, your football team experienced another kind of tragic loss last week with Bryce Beekman, and obviously it's kind of a tough time right now with most of the football players are obviously at home, aren't in Pullman, and I kind of go back to a couple of years ago after Tyler Helinski's death, and the university did such a great job of surrounding the football players with other football players that there were a lot of team meetings that week, and then you guys also had a few opportunities to kind of sit them down with a mental health specialist, psychologist. Are you guys still able to do that right now with virtually if any football players need to speak to someone or speak to each other?
Yeah, and I'll probably like to point out two things. One, this time of world history is so unique. So, even in like the only way, like even right away, if we heard the heartbreaking news at 7 p.m. Whatever that was on a Tuesday evening, and then by 9:15 we were on a Zoom call with our dean of student affairs, and she gets a call from the chief of police saying that the family had been notified. By 10 p.m. we have a Zoom meeting with the football team. And then hearing after with this coaching staff, part of their style is they're very interactive with their teams and with their groups. So all the position coaches went into immediate conversations with their teams, and from a resource standpoint, all of our resources are available, whether it's via Zoom. Zoom is HIPAA compliant, or at least there's a version of it that we have that's HIPAA compliant, or conference calls or FaceTimes. So all of our people are all working diligently to be there for our student athletes. But it's been unique. It's been tough. Bryce's mother and uncle made the trip from Baton Rouge. They finally were able to get clearance, and they were here the last 48 hours. Coach Rolovich, myself, Coach Banker met with them in respect to social distancing. We had our student affairs had a room set up for us that we could go over and express our condolences. But even meeting with a grieving mother, and wow, how strong and just, you talk about a woman that just in spending time with her yesterday, just the unbelievable strength that she has in making this trip and going through all this. Your heart breaks for her, but these are unique times. You can't even hug somebody that just lost a loved one. So it's the way the world is. We're gonna continue to do what's best for our student athletes. I'm happy that the environment that Coach Rolovich is building is highly communicative and highly connected with our student athletes. And it's not going to be. This is kind of one of those day by day things. And as we start to, whenever we're going to get back together again, that probably be a huge next step in healing this football program.
Since you arrived here at WCU in January of 2018, I believe, you fired coaches in each of the four kind of major sports. Obviously, Kyle Smith in men's basketball, Kimmy Etheridge in women's basketball, Brian Green in baseball, and Nick Rolovich in football. And it's kind of hard not to notice some parallels between each of those four coaches. And so I just wanted to ask about your process for hiring coaches. And most of these coaches you fired so far kind of been considered successes. I know Nick Rolovich hasn't played a game yet, but he has really kind of endeared himself to the Pullman community, and WC fans seem to love him so far. So can you just kind of take me through your process, and then also what you're looking for in a coach, and why there might be kind of some trends between the four coaches?
Well, the one thing here is so I grew up at a place that took great pride in its history and tradition, and being around that place for so long, and working for two extraordinary athletic directors. My one always takeaway was the athletic departments that have the most self awareness, that understand who they are, what type of people can be successful, what type of people fit culturally within that environment, typically do have the best chance of being successful. I think one of the great blessings here in hindsight is when you came here, you knew right away that our men's basketball program was in a distressed state, and that predated Ernie before I got here, and you knew right away that that we're trending in a manner where a change was gonna have to happen, but finances were always going to impact whenever that change was going to happen. I remember sitting down with Jen Greeny, and this is probably kind of with my usual hypothesis and self-awareness and understanding our organization. I remember asking Jen when I first time I sat with her. She talked about, we always ask our coaches what are the core values of their program, and what are the personal core values. And she was point blank. She's like, well, the core values of our program are Dick Bennett's. She's like, we ripped them off. She's like, I talked to Dick. He said, go ahead and use them. And they're all, I mean, they're service driven. I mean, she can recite them, gratitude, they're all the intrinsic things that make teams great. But then it's like one of those things. It's like, aha, it's like, all right, you knew that worked for the Bennetts. It's working for volleyball. And then I remember that summer, like I had a nice long conversation with Tony, just because I wanted to start, building up a mental database about what it took to win at Washington State, and you start going on this journey. And I remember Tony jokingly said, well, you can tell Coach Greeny that my dad ripped those off of someone else as well. But if anything, success begats success. But allows you to talk to Tony Bennett, George Raveling, Jim Walden, Mike Price, Mike Leach at the time, Todd Schulenberger. You could just go right down the list and just start taking notes about, all right, these are the types of people they are. These are the things they focused on in recruiting. This is what these are kind of the student athletes that they recruited here. And so it's like, all right, then as changes happen, it's like with every coaching search, you get a little bit better because you're here a little bit longer. But we believe there is a DNA that has been successful at Washington State. You're right. I'm glad you see that. The culture of an organization should be apparent from the outside looking in. Washington State wants people that we're a blue collar place. We want the type of coaches that value people, that value this institution, but also have a little bit of a curveball. I told them, I said, at the end of the day, the coaches that have been the most successful here run a pack line defense, do the air raid, do the one back offense. So that's also one piece of it that we've added to it. Is all right, we got to have great people, but they also have to have a really unique part of their methodology that makes it unique for Washington State if they're our head coach. And probably the last Brian Green. I mean, it's just odd. At New Mexico State, they led the country in hitting, on base percentage, slugging, and hit by pitch the last 2 years. Kyle, his use of data, and you see, I remember interviewing Kyle, and you're like, wow, this might be risky. And then it's like, he's showing how all the data backs up his methodology. You're like, wow, this might be the biggest no brainer. You literally flip in the meeting like this about why the guy fits. And because Coach Leach proved you can win here at Washington State with a passing centric offense, which really all it did was reaffirm what Mike Price believed. Then it's like, all right, this is the direction we need to go. And lo and behold, when you sit down with Coach Rolovich, I'd almost argue when we sat down with him, he kind of acted like he already had the job. That's how well he fit. You knew right away when you sat with him and spent a couple minutes with him. It's like, this guy really fits us well.
As an athletics director, maybe you don't necessarily have a list of coaches you're kind of looking at in case you need to make a coaching change or in case a coach leaves, but are you kind of aware of different people throughout the country that might kind of fit Washington State if you did have to make a coaching change in football or men's basketball or sport like that?
Yeah, I'm always reading, studying. I would label myself a social person. So, whenever we're at national places, I'll talk to people, and if there's groupings of coaches, we'll talk. And I'm friends. I got some very close friends in the industry as well that I trust. That are coaches and always give me good insight, or former coaches that give me good insight and give me really great opinions. So I would guess I'm not I can't pull open my drawer and say, hey, here's my 5 people that I'm thinking about if so and so's not here anymore. It's more like, all right, I want to constantly study who we are as an organization, where we're at, I guess, in April of 2020. What is working, because organizations constantly evolve. I like probably the best example is football. I believe Mike Leach was the perfect coach at the perfect time for Washington State to resuscitate a program that was really on life support. And then the goal is, history shows that Nick Rolovich was the perfect coach to take over from Mike Leach, because we're a very different program in 2020 than the program Mike took over in 2012. Some of the DNA has to match a little bit, but as we keep going forward, it's like, all right, that's why I think it's more important that we know who we are as an organization, what we're good at, what we need to improve at, and what types of people can and will be successful here.
Every school in the country is kind of going to face the financial fallout of the coronavirus and the different shutdowns that it's caused. And I believe you kind of answered the question like this a few weeks ago during a conference call. But do you have any kind of updated estimate on how much revenue WCU and other schools are kind of losing from the cancellation of the NCAA tournament? Obviously, you guys received money from Pac-12 Network broadcast. The spring game would have been broadcast on the Pac-12 Network's various baseball games. Do you have any kind of rough estimate as to how much money WCU is losing from the coronavirus?
Well, we're in our overall distribution, and a lot of our NCAA distribution is funneled through our conference. We're right now we're estimating a 5% reduction overall for us, and which is very significant for us. I think the variable for us right now is what will be the total impact on fundraising our Cougar Athletic Fund. Fortunately for us, we got through most of February. Our numbers were trending. It was really a testament to the success we were having this year and in recent years, and just how Coach Rolovich and Coach Smith and Coach Etheridge and Coach Green and all of our new coaches, as well as what Coach Schulenberger did in soccer. I think our alumni were really, really believing, at least showing, hey, we want to continue to donate and give to Washington State. So we need to kind of see where we end up with our annual fund number, but we're going through a process now, and we're trying to figure out. A lot of our losses will be mitigated because no one's traveling anymore. No coaches on the road recruiting. We don't have teams traveling anymore. But we're going to have to figure out where we make up some of this loss. So we're going through that process right now.
The past few days, there's been a handful of contingency plans for college football, and if the season can't go on as planned, and I know obviously nothing is set in stone yet or even close to that, and sometimes it's not even productive to kind of throw out scenarios, but people have suggested starting the season as early as June or July, or maybe just playing a 9-game conference season, or potentially even starting the season in January and kind of making it more of a winter spring football season. Have you kind of considered any of those plans and then thought about if any of those things are feasible at all?
Well, one, yes, this is the budgeting time of year for Washington State, but even, it's, the world continues to change. It's, for us right now, everything is, I guess, a hypothesis until students are allowed back on campus, college students. So even now, like our spring game has to be canceled. So we're adjusting things as we go. We got the stay-at-home order that just got extended. So I think it's as we go further out. One, I guess there's probably a couple things. The Pac-12 has put together a working group just to study football. So they've been meeting. Every school has a representative. Ours is Brian Blair. He's our administrator over football. Brian's got a pretty extensive background with the NCAA and at some other different conferences as well. But they've begun the process of figuring out, all right, if we could start on X date, what it looks like. If we could start on Y date, what does it look like? If we can start on Z date. Obviously, we're one of the 3 schools in our conference that had no spring football. Ironically, the 3 schools that didn't have spring football are the 3 schools that have new coaches. So that's I know everybody is concerned about competitive inequities, but the reality is just getting started again is probably the bigger priority, and not knowing that date makes it a lot. That variable is really hard to plan on. So we're going to be like every other school, though. We're going to, as we present a budget, we're going to have to model out what does a delayed football season look like, what does a truncated football season look like. I'd argue there's no point in us to even budget a no football season, because then we'll, I mean, it'll be destructive for our athletic program if there's no football season.
As an athletic department, I believe you guys were on track for a top 40 finish in the Directors Cup, which kind of includes every sport.
Technically, we finished top 40.
Finish,
Yeah.
yeah. I know they weren't able to include every sport in that, but
Yeah.
you guys were able to finish top 40. So just talk about what it's been like to be part of a department that's seen so much success across kind of the smaller sports, and then also with sports like football and basketball.
I just and obviously there's a huge bias to this, but the collection of student athletes we have is just extraordinary at Washington State. Just great young people that do things the right way, that represent our institution, that work their butts off, that are just genuine, caring, compassionate young people that want to be great and want to be coached and want to try to do things different, and picked Washington State because this place fits them. A place that has a different set of values fits them really well. And then to see, as you go through this year, and actually, this is the time of year I kind of do a lot of our year-end wrap-up talks, and one of our video people still went through the exercise of putting a year-end wrap-up video together for me, and I was watching it the other day, and you couldn't help but get a little bit emotional, because what soccer did was unprecedented. But that was just a great example of a bunch of Cougs putting team before self, and doing something extraordinary. And then you watch football have a down year and still make a bowl game. And then you see just Washington State just fall in love with the new football coach, and that football coach fall in love with Washington State. And then you watch, although not a lot of headlines, I can see all the progress Cami Etheridge is making in a program that historically I think has only made one NCAA tournament in its history, playing in the toughest women's basketball league in the country. And then you see what Kyle and the men's basketball program did. And I'm going to be forever. I might have said this to you. I'm forever indebted to Jeff, Gervais, CJ, Marv, Jazz for buying in and coming back. And man, we might look back on history. Those five guys coming back really changed the history of Washington State because of what they're able to do. And baseball was starting to flicker, and I think our rowing team would have made the NCAA tournament. Our swimming team, or excuse me, our tennis team would have. Our golf team would have. I didn't even mention Jen Greeny in a rebuilding year. As we sat, she told me in August it was a rebuilding year, and then they make the NCAA tournament. So we were on pace for this. The irony is we were on pace for this to be one of the great years in Washington State history. Even though we ended in early March, it's still one of the great years in Washington State history, which is a testament to how much success we had in the fall and most of the winter.
I know it's a little bit like picking your favorite child, but do you have a favorite moment necessarily from this athletic season? One moment that you were able to kind of experience live that kind of sticks out?
I will tell you this, and I won't go with the easy one is to say soccer, just because it was just, that's just pure adrenaline. I mean, Makia Minnis's goal will go down with Bledsoe to Bobo in the history of our school. That is, one of the most iconic plays. But I will tell you the small moment. I'll tell you the moment that really got me emotional was, and I think it's two things. It's going through the Clay game, and how Clay and how his words just resonated with every Coug that watched the game. And then for him to kiss that logo at the end of it, just symbolically meant so much to Washington State. And then you would have been there, fast forward to the senior day for the men's basketball team. And after all Jeff Pollard has been through, and after all Gervais has been through, to come here and come here under a different staff and watch all their friends come and go and transfer, and those two, and Jeff sticks it out. Gervais had been here a couple of years, but watch Gervais just find this role and just embrace it. And those two guys get pulled out of their last home game, and when those guys kiss that logo at midcourt, it's like, man, these guys and the pride they put into their basketball season. I mean, I teared up watching those two guys kiss it, because we went from last year where we were just a disaster at the end of the year, and guys were just couldn't wait to get out the door. Where you got two guys that poured their heart and souls into it and wanted to kiss that logo because that logo meant so much to them. That when I look back at this year, when you can restore the pride of a program, and that has nothing to do with me and everything to do with that 2019 2020 team, Kyle Smith and that staff. I mean, that was just such a wonderful moment to be there to watch those guys kiss that logo.
And I got one more question for you. It's kind of a two-parter. Aside from WC Sports, what sports would you usually be watching this time of year, and how are you kind of getting your sports fix without live sports? I you know a lot of old classic games are being replayed, and people are kind of doing it that way. What's your kind of method right now?
Well, I've made a decision. Like on my morning treadmill, I typically try to read or listen to something inspirational. But that's been out the door. So I actually got into Homeland, that Showtime series. If I'm running on a treadmill, I need to watch someone get chased. I'd usually watch Get Up in the morning, but I've become, I guess, uh, I, I'm one person that doesn't want to know what Tom Brady's doing every second of his day. So I can't watch ESPN anymore just because they don't have content. I am a sports dad. My oldest, who's a freshman, is a soccer player at. She goes to Pullman High. Freshman in Pullman. Our sixth grader plays volleyball. She's done with her season, and our youngest is a wannabe basketball player. She's a third grader. So because there's no sports going on, if anything, typically my routine now is I'll go. After my last Zoom meeting, which is typically 5 or 6 o'clock during the day, me and my youngest will actually, because my oldest don't want to do that with me, but my youngest, my third graders become my basketball project. I am a closet basketball coach. I'm awful at it. I'm awful at every sport. I always tell with the line I use with all of our coaches when I first meet with them is I'm here to give you leadership advice, team building advice. I said, if you ever take coaching advice from me, you will watch me lose respect for you in the meeting if you write down what I say. That's how little coaching advice you should ever take from me. But my third graders become my basketball project. So we've been dribbling through the neighborhood, putting up shots, putting up layups, or working on all like the both sides of the rim and the front side. So that's kind of been keeping me a little bit, giving me my sports fix and trying to help me become a better basketball player.
Well, I know Kyle Smith was offering some tips on Twitter to his own son Rocco, so maybe.
Rocco's a player.
Yep, he is.
I don't have, and he's got, and you got to find out. Like, probably I'll have Natalie look into this. That could be more Katie teaching Rocco than Kyle, and we're gonna have to find out, because I don't know if you ever seen the kid dribble a ball, but that kid is special. But then it's like, well, there's no debate. I mean, who the better basketball player out of the two are? She's a Division I basketball player, one of the great high school players in the history of the state of Washington. I mean, with all due respect, I didn't play Division III, but his resume does not stack up to Katie's as a player.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, Katie Smith, former Queen Bee, that's also a plug to a Spokesman-Review story I wrote about a month ago. Katie Smith and Jen Greeny actually playing in the state B tournament. So thanks a lot for your time, Pat. Hopefully we can do this again next week with a few of your coaches. Bring on Nick Rolovich and Kyle Smith, and have a great day, and we'll be in touch.
Hey, thank you guys, and everyone be safe, stay healthy. Appreciate everyone respecting social distancing, and go Cougs.
Thank you.
Hello, welcome back to Virtual Northwest Passages. I am Rob Curley, the editor of the Spokesman-Review. Our next session means a lot to several of us, especially parents like myself. We're going to have a sit down with Spokane Schools Superintendent Shelley Redinger and our education writer at the Spokesman-Review, Jim Allen. So thank you both for being a part of this. I'm going to shut up and listen because I can't wait to hear what you all talk about.
Great.
Thank you, Rob, and thank you, Shelley, for joining us. I know this has been a difficult time for everyone. I hope you and your family are well, and I just wonder how this has changed the routine for you and your own family with a high schooler in the house.
Yes, it's really been an adjustment. I know my son and I love to be around people, so it's been really hard on the two of us. My husband's more of an introvert, so he's dealing with it, I think, a little bit better. But the routine again is so important to keep up a normal routine, and so that's what we're trying to focus on as a family. But it's very much it's challenging, and my heart goes out to all of our families that are trying to keep their children engaged and focused on learning.
I know that as many superintendents do, you make it a point to visit the schools on a very regular basis and to keep in touch with teachers, administrators, and students. How has this closure made it more difficult to keep in touch and keep that personal contact going?
Yes, I think we're all becoming experts with Zoom and Teams, and we're all finding that it's actually more tiring in terms of the constant viewing of technology and focusing on making sure that we're staying consistent. So I would say that what we're trying to do to stay connected is we're still sending a lot of emails for families. We're trying to make sure we give day to day. At first, we were doing day to day. Now it's every other day in terms of updates about the latest news. So we're using social media even more than before to stay connected and try to keep everybody up to speed. It is very different. So I've been trying to send out recently a couple staff emails that are more just focused on connecting at that human level of how's everyone doing, make sure you're taking care of yourself, making sure that you have time to do things that you enjoy, because this is such a different pace than we're all used to.
Now, I know the district has made a huge commitment in recent years to technology, and it sounds like that's paying off quite a bit. I for one, was skeptical that you could meet the demand for laptops for those families who didn't have them, but it sounds like that's going pretty well. Can you talk about the outreach for those families and how that's going, not only with laptops, but also connectivity? And is there any more work to do on that front?
Yes, very good question. So definitely this has forced us all to utilize the tools that have been available to us. And so, really, laptops, fortunately, we had just made big investments in terms of our laptops and technology, as you alluded to. So, we're able to deploy those and we're able to keep up with the demand. We're constantly asking families if you need technology, let us know. We're also partnering with Comcast and Xfinity, starting to partner as well in terms of helping with hotspots. And we're looking at putting hotspots on buses and putting them into communities where it's harder for technology access. Also, there's some big grants out there that we're learning about to help make sure that we can get additional tools as we move forward. We think this is going to be longer than at first expected. As you saw yesterday, the governor extended the stay home, stay put initiative. And so we know that we need to even step it up even more, as this might be our new normal for a few months. So right now it's been extended until May 4th. That's getting very close, obviously, to the end of the school year. So we hope to get more information next week, but technology is going to be critical.
Well, you anticipated my next question based on what the governor did yesterday, and schools are going to have to follow suit because you have to stay at home, right? What are the challenges, and what are some of the, I guess, contingencies should that school closure last into the summer? Could we see summer school? I guess there's a lot of moving parts.
Yes, a lot of moving parts. And so we're really looking to see nationally, there's some other states that are a little bit ahead of Washington State in terms of how they're meeting the needs and demands of distance learning. So our team is doing a lot of research in terms of around the country. North Carolina just started with a distance learning program statewide. As you know, New York, California. So we're working with OSPI to try to work on a statewide model as well to help with some consistencies across the board. So I do see that the calendar may shift a little bit in terms of the learning, and it's very difficult. We're behind in some areas now that we'll need to do some catch up and probably some reteaching and relearning in the fall as we look at how is our calendar actually going to look moving forward. If we're not able to physically be in our buildings even in the fall, we will just need to continue to ramp up these programs as we move forward. And as you know, we're looking at different grading options as well.
And again, you anticipated a question. I was just trying to put myself in the position of a high school senior or even a junior who
Mhm.
maybe has that B plus, and it's not quite an A, and they're thinking, well, this might make the difference between getting into one college or another. There's a lot of anxiety surrounding, well, not only grades, but graduation requirements, commencement, proms, and all that senior
Oh,
experience.
yeah.
What can you say in a general sense about the angst that these families and students are feeling right now?
Yes, in particular for juniors and seniors, there's a lot of angst about what does this mean? What does this mean for their futures? So our counselors and administrators are working very closely with our seniors to make sure that they have all the supports they need in order to be able to get into their colleges they apply for or where they're heading for their trade school experience. So that is a real focus right now is making sure that our seniors, we're touching base with each senior and that they have the supports that they need in place to continue on. Juniors, right now, the State Board of Education has only given waivers for this year's graduating class. We anticipate we're going to need more waivers in the future, probably as far as this year's freshmen, sophomore, juniors as well, in terms of how this may impact them as they move forward.
Now, I'm also hearing from colleges and universities that they're taking this with a large grain of salt with what's going on, but at the same time, you don't want seniors to think they can coast because they think that maybe colleges and universities will discount this entire second semester.
Oh, completely. We're really cautioning families, families as well as students not to be thinking that way as we're really monitoring what's happening nationwide. There's still most of our students compete nationally for spots in colleges, trade schools, even in work experiences and apprenticeships, and how important it is to stay competitive and to stay engaged of what's going on, and so that Washington State students in particular don't get behind and lose out. It's very important that we stay focused on that for our students in Washington.
Now, I know there are at the other end of the scale, we have students who may be failing some classes. What are some of the mechanisms that those students and their families can use this summer to redress
Yeah.
that issue and graduate?
So we're working as you know, we have a very robust Spokane virtual learning program, and that is our online program. And we're really looking at some other options with that as well as to expand SVL to more students in this transition time to recoup credits, and also other ways that we can use SVL to help our students stay on track. So that will be a big, important part of it.
And of course, a lot could be happening in the summer as well. Is it too early to talk about what the summer could look like for students at all ages? I mean, might there be some gaps filled in with summer classes, or will we simply just go into the fall? Or is it too soon to say?
It's probably, I tell you, Jim, we've been taking it almost day by day in terms of, that's not ideal, but it's just really what's the cards we've been dealt is day by day. So we should know more next week. We're hoping in terms of how long this closure will take place. And then we're working with our in terms of looking at our calendar and making sure that it's logical and makes sense what we're doing. Uh, no matter what happens, I do see the need for us to continue food. These are very unusual, as we've talked about in extraordinary times, in terms of basic needs as well. We usually don't provide food and meals over the spring break. We're going to do that this year. And I see that continuing. We always have a summer meal program, but I see that being expanded, the sites and how we're supporting. Then also the child care for our first responders. I see that continuing as well.
Is there-
We have a few
Go ahead.
questions coming in from readers. I'd like to start to ask a few of those. So this one is from Christy. Parents like me are going nuts with motivating their kids to even do online stuff. Teachers are being very supportive with emails, but how can we as parents be supportive and not shrews? My kids range from 7th graders to high school freshmen.
I relate, having a high school student at home. And really, the key that we're all finding is regardless of age, so whether an elementary student, middle school student, high school, how important it is to maintain some sort of a consistent routine. So, as much as you can with sleep patterns, meals, really try to keep a consistent routine of when a student maybe takes some time to do exercise, take regular breaks, do something that they like, do their chores, and then really build in those regular breaks, and then practice healthy habits. Um, just trying new recipes, having students maybe try to make a healthy smoothie, but again trying to keep healthy eating habits is going to be really critical, because many of us are not as active as we've been, and we're doing more sitting, and so that's going to be very important. I would also say too, it's really hard, but limiting how much our students still are on technology. We all know what it does for the brain and the eyes, and just the general fatigue that happens with too much technology. So I think that's really important. Also, it's so important for students to stay connected to their social networks and their support, checking in with their teachers, their social networks. I know there was a group of students that sang together in terms of a choir practice. So that will be very important as well. And then we just all need to remember to be patient. It's very hard as we're all together as families, and just remembering to be patient with each other. And this isn't easy for anyone. And that I think too that we all need that time to be alone and read a book, and just some alone time and self care is really, really important. So those would be some key items. I know our health and fitness teachers are doing a lot online, so you can go in and see some quick exercise routines that you can do. Yoga, if you haven't tried yoga, this is probably a good time to start. And you don't even need a yoga mat, just a towel, and just to kind of get that thinking and resting your mind and relaxation. So those are just some tips that we've come up with that could help.
So Ellen has asked, should this school year just be a do-over? Why or why not?
Well, there was a rumor that went out and about that really scared some students. We got some calls and emails that said that everybody had to repeat this grade. That is a rumor. But I do think that we'll have to really, in the fall, as we look at the next couple years for these students, can we make sure to fill in the holes where they are in terms of lost learning? Because there is going to be lost learning, and we need to figure out how can we help recoup as much of that as possible for our students. But I don't see it as a complete do-over, but because some of our students don't get to get a do-over like our seniors. So I think we need to finish strong, and then we'll have to fill in the learning gaps when we all get back together again. And hopefully that won't be too far away, but we need to prepare for it to be for quite a while.
We have a question from Tyler. How would students of essential employees be impacted by distance learning? Parents who still work may not be able to assist in the home education process. How can these students not be left behind? What can we do to help?
That's a really good question. So I would, as much as we've been able to, we're asking all of our employees, even our essential employees, to work from home as much as possible. And that's difficult for everyone, but we're trying to do that to help with social distancing. Some of our essential employees that are on a rotation, they have some time there, but I would say really would encourage those students to really connect with teachers as often as possible and to reconnect with their students that they are their classmates. I think that's real important to stay engaged and connected. Also, I know that many of our teachers are becoming better skilled at using these tools. I heard they had a number of first graders utilizing Zoom and Teams, and that gave them a chance to really interact and see each other. So we're trying to really encourage using those technology tools. I know even when I'm doing my touch base with my own leadership team, we Zoom twice a day, 9 in the morning and 3 p.m. every day. It's just nice to see everybody's faces, and it makes a huge difference to actually see a person's face. So I would really encourage that with students.
Jim, back to you right now.
Awesome. Thank you, Rob. I just had a couple more questions. You had, I'm trying to be on these things, and I can't help but think, well, what about the longer term? And what about possibly any fiscal challenges that districts might face in the wake of all this? I would think that property values might go down and hence the tax base. I know that the district and others are already fiscally challenged. Does this keep you up at night, Shelley?
Absolutely. Budget is really weighing on us right now. And so the leadership team and I have really been talking about that because we had a plan laid out, and we'll be working with the school board. We're doing all of our school board meetings, as you know, by Zoom. And actually, we're getting really good attendance, actually
Mhm.
better than when we did them in person. So we might have found something kind of good there for our school board meetings. But we'll be talking to our school board about budget, looking at different fiscal models, um, looking at our modeling, keeping in mind cuts, and what would it look like with 10% cuts? What would it look like with 20% cuts as we move forward? And this is unprecedented times in terms of budget. We're not alone. I know small businesses are hurting, and everyone is looking at their bottom line and their budget. And so we are also going to be heavily impacted as well. So more to come on budget as we move forward. There is some money coming from the federal level. Washington State's still trying to figure out for education how much money we would each get and how that would be deployed. So we're waiting on that. I know Montana has already dispersed some of their funds to their school districts. We have not seen that quite yet, and we're looking forward to seeing what that would be to help us out.
I do want to say I've been very impressed by the way the Zoom meetings have gone at for, I think, on a lot of levels. Certainly for the school board, I was impressed with the participation. So I do want to give a shout out to people out there who might want to see what a school board meeting looks like in a virtual sense. And so those would be, I think, an excellent thing for people to look at. Only one more question. I'm trying to look at the positives here, and I see one, which is, I think, a school system that's going to be more adaptable to technology moving forward. What might things look like perhaps as soon as this fall?
Well, I do think that we'll be using many more of our technology tools. Like you said, one of the positives that has come out of this is our teachers and staff are getting a lot of professional development. It's online that our instructional team has developed in terms of how do you use the tools for instruction. And this gives staff time to really kind of play with the tools, utilize them, and try them out. So I agree. I think we're going to be more sophisticated with technology in the fall. I would say that we are really working too on how can we make sure we're addressing the mental health needs of our students using technology. And there is a lot of work going on with that to help us. And actually, the CDC has a really good mental health document in terms of helping students through this crisis with mental health as well. So I think there's going to be ways we can use technology to support our students as well, whether having therapy with a Zoom, and then all telehealth, all of those things also.
So we have a few more questions that have come in from readers. Here's one. With special education students typically needing a lot of one-on-one support, are there any other strategies in the works to help those children so they don't get left further behind?
Now, that is a very good question. This is such an unusual situation we find ourselves where human contact is discouraged. And so my heart goes out to all of our families that have students with special needs, because I'm sure they're feeling exceptionally lonely right now in terms of we can't go into the home and help. And so we're trying to do, our special education director, Becky Ramsey, is doing a lot in terms of this online concept where students are connecting with a real person and getting their therapy. Some therapies are easier than others. Obviously, speech therapy in this kind of modality works better than occupational therapy in terms of anything physical. And so we're just really working to partner with parents. We're looking for best practices across the country. We belong to a group called the Urban Collaborative that is also addressing this issue and making sure that we're getting support for our special education families. If our families are feeling not supported in terms of special education, I encourage them to reach out to Becky Ramsey, our special education director, or to me directly using my email so that we can make sure you're getting supports.
So this next one is less of a question and more of a comment, but I think you'll enjoy it. Love that the music teachers' videos that have been posted on Facebook. Really enjoying how the art music teachers are helping with keeping connected to their kids via social media. Also have seen several STEM teachers putting together STEM kits for the grab and go programs for kids to pick up. You have great teachers at SPS. So, we don't always hear good things.
Yeah, that's great. Thumbs up. That's great.
So Jim, do you have any other questions?
I do not. I think I've gone through them. This has been very illuminating, though.
I agree. I want to thank you both for doing this, Shelley and Jim, and you all stay safe out there. And I hope that we can reconnect and talk in a few weeks, because it feels like the world changes very quickly now.
Absolutely. I would very much enjoy coming back and doing this again.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
All right. We're logging off.
Thank you, Rob.